What up, dude?
What up? What up? Just give me a couple minutes here, and then when it hits 7, I'll do a little, what people know what the name of the podcast is here. Let them know, we got Boggles on and all that, and then we'll kick it off.
Cool, man. Yeah, take your time.
All right, cool, dope, dope. All right. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, and good night. It is Talking About Life, the podcast. I am your host, Kowski. Today, we've got our guest on the show here, Boggles. Boggles is a nomad, a biz dev, someone who is the host of the Stoic Bee, which is a Stoicism Spaces on Twitter, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Also, fellow person who I'm friends with in the crypto, Gary V Friends, NFT, crypto Twitter online community. But let's kick it off here. How are you doing, Boggles?
Kowski, I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
Awesome. Very good, brother. Happy to hear it. Happy to hear you're doing well. So you can kind of hop into whatever you want to hop into first. If you want to kind of go into like a little bio about yourself, I'm assuming, and I'm definitely interested if you want to kind of plug yourself a little bit here, tell people about the Stoicism spaces, or maybe talk a little bit about Stoicism in general, or if you want to get into that later, however you want to kind of go with your flow. But yeah, why don't you kind of kick it off here?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we can dive into all those things and more. But yeah, just a little about me. I am from Jacksonville, Florida, so that's where I grew up most of my life. I spent a little bit of time in Virginia, but Jacksonville is where I call home. It's where I spend all my time. It's where I go back to. But currently, and for the last about 3.5 years now, my wife and I have been traveling full time. So a little bit, we started in 2019, came back to the US for a little bit right before COVID. And then when COVID started, we got out of there and we spent pretty much all of COVID in Europe. And then now we're in Central America and Panama.
Would you describe
But
yourself as financially free?
hmm, that's a good question. I'm financially agile. So we're both building our businesses. We're both entrepreneurs. So, I mean, we're by no means rich or balling out of control or anything like that. But When we need to tighten the belt, we can do that. And then when we want to splurge a little bit, we do that too. So that's kind of the best part about this digital nomad lifestyle is like, if we need to live really cheap, we go to a country where the dollar goes really far. And if we want to like go see some cool shit and, spend a bunch of money, we can go to somewhere real nice. So no, I wouldn't say financially free quite yet, but working on it.
I like that term that you provided there, financially agile. And, for the listeners here, would you mind just explaining a little bit about, what is it you do? How have you achieved this financial agility?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background's in accounting. I got my degree from the University of Florida in accounting and started working at the PGA Tour for 5 years. I did accounting for 3 and then a financial analyst, basically like a biz dev consultant type situation for 2 years. Left that job, started my own consulting company where I just help small, medium-sized businesses scale, grow. And I've been doing that since 2017. And
Now, did you
then
find that was difficult, like that journey of, going from accounting, as someone who's working for a company, then to like starting your own company?
actually, it happened by accident. So I left my job just because I knew I didn't want to be in
Sounds
kind
like
of the,
a sorry to cut you off. That sounds like a very happy accident. I wish as many accidents like of such nature
yeah,
would happen to everybody. But sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no worries. No, it was, I left my job and at the end of 2017 and with no plan of like what I was doing after, I just knew I did not want to be in a corporate environment. And I wanted to do something on my own or just work at a smaller company where I had kind of more say in the direction of what was going on. So now, that's the end of 2017. We're going into the end of the year, in 2018, and that's like right around tax time. So I had friends and family, like family friends and some other family members, like reaching out to me, like, "Hey, I heard you don't have a job now. Do you think you could help me, like, just look over my books and make sure that I'm, and just kind of helping them with QuickBooks and like kind of simple stuff like that." And so I was doing that just to like be a buddy. And then I was like, you know what? I probably could turn this into a business. And I had been in Jacksonville my entire life. I was pretty well connected and in the community with like different groups. So I just like, I'm sure if I get my name out there a little bit, I'll have a couple people that are willing to pay me to do this for them. So that's how it started. And I grew that in Jacksonville for like 2 years. And then I had the plan, me and my wife and I had the plan to like move out of the country. So then I had to kind of start transitioning the consulting job to be more of a remote thing because before it wasn't. I was going into my clients' offices and kind of like being an employee in their office. But so I had to do that transition, which was fun. I also build websites too. So I run 2 e-commerce websites. So I've got the consulting and then the websites, and those are kind of my two. That's where I spend most of my time. And then I'm trying to grow a Web3 type situation,
And
kind of
on the
basically a biz
websites,
dev.
what sort of websites do you run?
I have 2 websites. So one is sells electric fireplaces, and that's in the U.S. So that's verygoodfireplaces.com. And then another one that I just opened with my cousin in the UK is Tape Jungle, and they sell custom printed packaging tape. So if you have a business or an Etsy shop or something like that, and you want to put your logo on the tape that when you ship the box to your customer, that's what we do. We make that tape.
If I simply wanted to put several different types of mustaches on the tape, could I do that as well as like a gag gift type thing? Or is it only logos and branding and corporate?
No, you can do whatever you want. And actually the company is based in the U.S. So he started it in the U.S. Him and a partner started it maybe 8 years ago, 10 years ago, something like that. And their website in the U.S. is one of the main ones that does tape like that. And then, but yeah, you can do whatever you want. We have plenty of people that do
And you said it's packing
non-corporate.
tape?
They have a couple different
Like
options, like
duct
packaging
tape,
tape.
packing tape. Can you? I get not Scotch tape, right? That has to be clear. Or can you do like translucent Scotch tape? Or yeah, what are the options?
Is there clear? I don't think they have printing on the clear because that doesn't like print well. Like bleeds is
Yeah,
all
I
it
imagine that
bleeds
could be hard.
strangely.
I imagine even if
Uh,
you did, it wouldn't look great. Yeah, that makes sense.
but there is tapes that are more translucent, but they're not completely clear.
Interesting. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Now let me ask you a question going back to the accounting as well. Do you do like crypto NFT accounting? Do you avoid that? Do you have thoughts on that as a whole, like as an accountant?
So, oh yeah, maybe I should preface. I am not an accountant. I am by no means a CPA. This is not like I just work. So I haven't.
Gotcha. Sorry.
So it's kind of
Sorry,
yeah.
I don't
No,
mean to put out like false info. Sorry
no,
for
no,
the.
no. It's all good. It's all
Please
good.
correct
It's
me.
it's it's confusing. So it's totally understandable. I got a degree in accounting, which allows me to just like work for an accountant basically. But in order to like be a person that signs off on tax returns, you have to actually go take a test, pass the test, and get your CPA, which I just never did.
So
It was something
before
I
the
was thinking.
Nomad job, you were an accounting consultant, right? That would be a bit like, but that's different than an accountant. Am I getting that distinction right?
So no, I mean my title at the PGA Tour was just like staff accountant. So like you're like a junior accountant, like a
Gotcha.
you're
So
not
you
right.
you still call it accountant, but CPA technically is different. That like that's a special type of accountant.
Yeah, I mean I'm
Sorry, I'm
not.
like clueless on this. So
No, it's
I'm like
cool.
you're teaching me.
It's kind of like the if you had like I don't know if you've ever my friend's a physical therapist. Is the only reason I know this, but so there's a physical therapist, and then there's like a physical therapist assistant, and like an assistant can't really like do anything. Everything has to be signed off by the actual physical therapist. Like, so that's kind of what it was. Like I would do like simple tasks, and then I'd hand over all the books to an actual accountant, and they would look at it and approve it. So I was just like the pushing the paper around.
Right, but the title is still staff accountant. Yes.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
was
Cool.
doing staff accounting, and then a financial analyst, and then I just became like a biz dev consultant essentially. I was like doing some project managing, so I had like a couple hats on at once. But I mean, that's entrepreneurship.
When you left when you were working for the one company and then you went on to your own endeavors, the type of consulting I'm just trying to get a picture of it in my head. You would go into other companies at first and then meet with the accountants at those companies and then like work with them and then like assist them like that. Am I getting it kind of correctly?
Yeah, it actually worked out really well for me because what I would do is, these people, they're usually entrepreneurs, so they're busy as shit running their businesses, and they don't want to deal with the like minutia of making sure their checking account balances. So I would do that for them. But then what would happen is I would get to see their books, and then I would say, you know what? You're really spending a lot of money on X. Are you sure you need to be spending that money? Like, what is that getting you? And then that led to like an actual consult, like that's when I started actually just consulting on how the businesses can be better and make more revenue, less expenses, right? So it was really like a stepping stone for me where like I was just doing books because that's what people were coming to me for because they all thought I was an accountant, the same way that you're sitting here like, hey, you're a CPA. Like it's just very confusing. So people thought I could like prepare their taxes for them, but I definitely could not do that. But I got their books, I saw what there was going on in their business, and then I was able to make suggestions about, hey, maybe if you did this a little better or stop spending money here, you could save a little bit and da da da. So like that's where the consulting part came in, where I would just kind of see what the mistakes they were making and try and help correct them.
Yeah, dude, that sounds incredibly helpful. Now, question on this: like, do you have you have a natural knack for this, or I guess do you love doing it? Is it is it something you're good at that you love doing? You don't love it, but you happen to be really good at it. Like, kind of how do you feel doing it? Like, do you enjoy it?
So, so it's actually kind of crazy. Like I feel like, and this is something I've only recently realized. Like I'm 34, but I've only realized this in the past like 2 years or something maybe. But like my whole life, I think I've been an entrepreneur, and I've always loved like talking about business, thinking about business. How to make things better, giving suggestions to people that own their own business. Like that's just always been my thing. And I never really considered it like a hobby or a trait like that until I heard Gary talking about it like that. And so I just it did so it's something that did come naturally to me. But I mean, I also went and got my MBA, so I have that. And then what I was doing at the PGA Tour for 2 years, my last 2 years I was working there. So I'm not sure if you're familiar, but the PGA Tour is the organization that runs all the golf tournaments in the United
Uh,
States.
I'm not a golf enthusiast, I would say, but my father certainly is. So yes, I am aware generally of that the PGA Tour is golf. Yeah.
Okay, so like all those little tournaments that your dad watches every weekend, they're like basically small businesses. Each one of them is this different small business that we work with. So what my job was
That
I would
basically sponsors the tournaments. You're saying yes?
Yeah, so like the FedEx Classic is sponsored by FedEx, and then St. Jude's Hospital is the nonprofit organization that runs the tournament. So I work with that nonprofit, and I help them become better, because at the end of the day, whatever's left over in the they take all their revenue in, they subtract all their expenses, and the rest of that money goes to charity. So my job was to drive charity dollars up, and how we did that was either increasing revenue or decreasing expenses. So I was working with tournaments for 2 years doing just that. And then I left and started doing that with other people's businesses. So that's where I really got the kind of the experience, was at the tour, and then I got the education in school. So, but it's always been something that I've had a knack for.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds awesome. And yeah, obviously it sounds like you enjoy it. Now, if you don't mind, if you want to say anything else, go ahead. But if you don't mind transitioning here, I would love to dive into, your kind of thoughts on Stoicism and the spaces. And I'll just kind of say my take first here. I don't think I knew, or I didn't think I knew what Stoicism was. And then, you kind of introduced me to it as like an idea, as like this branded concept of like, this is Stoicism. And then I'm learning, it's like Marcus Aurelius. I'm like, oh my God, I love Marcus Aurelius. Like, he's just, one of those people whose names, when it's attached to a quote, it stuck out as like, wow, that guy's got some fucking fire sayings. Like, you know what I mean? The dude's got great quotes. I relate to what he's putting out into the universe. He thinks on a different level. He's got a certain type of consciousness and paradigm and way of seeing things that it sounds super advantageous in almost every quote that I had read from him. And then you're telling me, oh, he's a Stoic. I'm like, wow, this okay. So I'm kind of into this already, just not with the knowledge that it has a formal framework. But yeah, why don't you jump into that?
Yeah, I mean, just to put the pin on the kind of business side of things, I am trying to do this in Web3. I'm trying to do biz dev in Web3. I am offering my assistance and knowledge and skills to anyone that wants them. So any of the listeners, please DM me. We can chop it up about your business as long as you want.
Oh yeah,
So
sorry.
yeah,
If you want to go on for another minute or two about that, what is it exactly? I know people heard everything up until now, right? But if you had to make it like a soundbite kind of thing, what would you bullet point that you offer to people that you are offering your services to?
so I'm an experienced business development consultant, and I would like to help you either grow your project or build your Web3 company, or it just advise you on how to build your own business, because that's something I also do, and those are all kind of related. So anything that's advising a small business, a new entrepreneur, helping a current business grow to be better, faster, stronger, that's kind of what I'm trying to do.
Are you leaning towards Web3, or are you still open to Web2 if someone like that wanted to reach out?
Oh, I mean, I'm willing to help anyone. I just want to help. That's the main goal here. But I mean, my ultimate goal is to start like a Web3 consulting business. I'm really, if I'm just being perfectly honest, I'm out here just trying to find partners to do that.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think that's phenomenal. I mean, I definitely have my own company. I have Alien Inc. So, at some point we'll have to chat offline about just any thoughts that you may potentially have about that. I personally don't have a huge budget, so we'll figure out if it's something that we can or can't make work. I don't know if you're within the range that I have, but if you are, yeah, I would definitely love to connect on that. And if not, maybe you could offer a few kind of pointers here and there, kind of thing, or whatever you can. But yeah, definitely would also love to follow up on that as well, personally.
Yeah, no, dude, absolutely. I thought about that when I made the connection that you even had that brand. So yeah, I'm definitely available, and don't worry about the money. It's free. I want to help you.
That is ridiculously kind. When I can pay you back, I will. Even if you say I don't have to, that is my mindset. I never forget somebody who helps me. And thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, we're a small, believe it or not, it's a small community, and I think we are, as human beings, are here to serve each other. So I'm gonna help you, my buddy, as much as I can.
And I will do the exact same back for you in all the
Oh,
ways that I can. And, my goal is to keep building my value because I think I have potential to, increase or expand the amount of value I can provide. But I can't provide it back, right, without getting some help at some point. So again, thank you. It's incredibly generous, and I appreciate you.
yeah, man. But that leads perfect segue into Stoicism. I mean, I started studying Stoicism. So anyway, just to kind of reset, I host the Be Stoic space every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 a.m. with my co-host Vic. So we've been doing it now for about a month and a half, and it's kind of popping off. It's been pretty fun. I've been really enjoying it. But I started Stoicism, studying the practice about 4 years ago. I honestly don't even remember how I got into it. I think I heard Ryan Holiday on a podcast and then maybe started listening to, he's kind of the main Stoic writer of the day.
And real quick
Um,
for the folks here, I said it at the beginning, but Tuesday and Thursday, 9 a.m. Eastern time is when you can join the Stoic Spaces. So just pop in if you'd like, but go ahead.
Yeah, and the also the Stoic space, the Be Stoic space has its own Twitter, which is in my bio, and in that the pinned tweet on the Be Stoic space is the recordings from all of the sessions we've had. Eventually, they will become podcasts, but I just haven't figured that out yet.
Wait,
But
what
yeah,
was your question? What did you say about the podcast?
eventually I'm going to turn those recordings into podcasts, but I just haven't like taken the time to
They're the
figure out how to do
recorded
that.
Twitter sessions, yeah?
Yeah, so they're all spaces right now. So I think there's like 12 of them.
So what
Um,
I've been doing, so there was this old school way that was complete trash that it was fine when I thought it was the only way. I didn't know of any other way, and I don't know when this other way came out or whatever, where you had to download your entire archive of everything you've like ever done on Twitter and then extract this one tiny piece of it from it, which is like the spaces recording. But then even then, that's not a like MP3, it's like a Twitter Spaces recording file format. So then you have to like convert it. And then when I'm doing that one day, I'm like, like if someone's converting this file format anyway, someone's probably just converting it from the link, no? And then yes. So it's this thing audiolabs.io slash I think download hyphen spaces. I could double check and DM it to you later, but I'm just gonna also put it on the say it out loud in case anybody's listening. It's audiolabs.io download spaces, and you put in the link. Like you go to play the recorded space, you have to like hit play and then hit the share button, get the copy link from there, put it in there, hit next. Then you just give them your email address. Sorry, voice crack. Then you give them your email address, and within I think like an hour or to 3 hours, they'll send you an MP3 file of your spaces recording.
Okay, that's fucking dope. Because I just got done with the whole process. So like when we first started the space, it was hosted on my account, and then eventually we made like the Be Stoic Space Twitter account, and they were hosted over there. So I just got done with like going through the download because I like requested my shit from Twitter from my account, and I haven't done it yet for the Be Stoic account. So now I'm just not going to do that. So that's
Yeah,
great.
honestly, I would say fuck all of that. That's how I'm doing it. I'm loading these to Anchor, and I don't know what you want to do for the podcast. So there's like a million ways to do podcasts, but I like this app Anchor because it puts it on Anchor, it puts it on Spotify, it puts it on the Apple Podcast. It was like Google, Amazon. I'm leaving out some, but there was I think also several more that I was less familiar with, but and then I didn't sign up for it yet, but that even got me thinking like, yeah, I might as well sign up to these other things when I get around to it. And, if it's as easy as putting it just on the one platform and it distributes all these places, I'm like, yeah, like you might as well, if that's other podcast platforms, of course. I mean, to me, like, maybe there's reasons not to, but to me, it seems like, yeah, definitely you should.
No, for sure you should. And I think you're like probably the third person that's told me about Anchor. So that definitely seems like
There you go.
the right
I always
move.
say when these things come in threes, you gotta like go with like three people I know recommend something. I'm like, okay, all right, universe
Absolutely.
or whatever the algorithm of life is
Yeah.
telling me here. All right, gotta go with it.
But yeah, so I guess, yeah, back to the
But
Stoicism.
yeah, sorry. Ryan Holiday is I think you said foremost speaker of our modern kind of times on Stoicism and writer. And go ahead.
Yeah, so all the standard like Stoic books that you see in the bookstores, he's written a lot of them. So I started listening to his podcast, and it just clicked, like kind of the same thing that you said, where like you were kind of already in this mindset, and then like you like the Marcus quotes and that sort of stuff. But that's exactly how it was for me. Like I was like, you know what, I kind of think this way anyway. Like I'm already sort of operating with this mindset, so let me just dig into it even more. So he has this book called The Daily Stoic, and every day there's a different reading. So I started that book, and I've just been reading it constantly since I picked it up. So it's like I'm on my fourth time I've read through it. Um, and then I picked up, so I was just reading Ryan Holiday's stuff, and then I picked up actual like more ancient literature, which is more difficult to read just because it's not as simple. But I read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, which is probably the one book of Stoicism that everyone points to. It's like if there was a Stoic Bible, it would probably be that. And that book's fantastic, but it's like it's a journal to himself. He's literally writing to himself. So, but anyway, so that was interesting. And Stoicism was just something that really spoke to me. And I like anything that, it's just been around forever. So anything that's been around for over 2,000 years, I feel like is probably something we should at least dig into a little bit. But then the way that it has a lot of commonalities with, different religions and different schools of thought and other philosophies. So I'm a fan of finding the common threads in different ideologies and then saying, okay, if these 6 different ideologies are following one common thread, then that's probably a pretty good thing. So like the importance of the community, there's a Stoics quote that, what's good for the hive is good for the bee. So what's good for the community is good for you. So that was a theme that really attracted me to Stoicism. But yeah, it's just something that's been kind of a foundation for my life, and it's something that I kind of return to pretty consistently whenever I'm struggling or having issues or facing challenges.
Now, are there any significant challenges in particular that stand out to you that it has helped you through?
Yeah, absolutely. So entrepreneurship, like just the concept of being an entrepreneur.
Oh, wait, dude, I'm sorry. Like, did we, I feel like we didn't fully, did we define Stoicism for the people who have like no idea what Stoicism is? Like, I know we talked about Ryan Holiday, comes from the ideas of Marcus Aurelius, but if we had to give it like I don't know, 1 or 2 sentence, like boiled down, can we give it that and then go into the question?
Yeah, of course. No, that's great. So just very, very high level. I mean, the main goal of Stoicism is for you to understand what things you can control in life and what things you can't control, and to only focus your energies on things that you can control. That's that. If I had to boil it down to nothing, its smallest thing, that's what I would say. So it's just focusing on the things that you can control and ignoring the things that you cannot control. You cannot control the weather. There is no need for you to get upset when it starts raining. You can control whether you bring an umbrella or not. So,
yeah, and then I would say one more thing that I find, I don't know if everyone agrees, but central to it for me is the memento mori idea, which is the remembrance that, you are mortal and, you could die. And not only you'll definitely die. And it's just, how do you maximize every moment of your life with the knowledge that eventually it's going to come to an end and that your time is limited? So, how do you kind of zoom out and pick what is your best move on the chessboard? But when you zoom out, know what you're zooming out to is like, the beginning and kind of end of your own life, so to speak, right? Like, would you say also that's correct?
yeah, it definitely is one, and that's kind of one of the things too that where they like death is something you are supposed to think about. I think like 4 or 5 times a day to understand that not only you're going to die and let that. So Marcus has a quote, you are going to die. You could die tomorrow, and let that be the thing that determines what you say, think, and do for the next 24 hours. So you are going to die, and you need to be aware of that. So understand that. It also helps to put things into perspective of like this little issue that's bothering me today is not really that big of a deal because I might die in an hour, and maybe I don't want to spend my last hour worrying about this thing. But also, not just for yourself, but also it's kind of a reminder that like the people in your loved ones in your life, like they can go at any moment. Someone can get hit by a car, someone can have some fatal disease, and like to cherish the moments that you have with people, to really like, the memento mori concept and the idea of death has been one thing that I've used as like to just help me get over stuff quicker. Like I feel like forgiveness comes so much faster now because I am just like, well, I could die tomorrow, they could die tomorrow. What's the point of us being angry at each other?
Right. And that's living in the truth of reality because you don't know, and while they probably, statistically, they probably won't die tomorrow, right? Based on, just the odds, they could,
Hmm.
and you never know that. And it's knowing that, yeah, this maybe probably won't happen, right? But for the people who are defiant of the odds and experience a tragedy, well, they didn't think it was going to happen to them either. When you're the 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000,000, you didn't think you would be. So, you know, it's go, oh, that would never happen to me. There's 1 in 1,000,000, right? But how many tragedies are there? So if there's millions of possible tragedies, you know what I'm saying? Like, the odds are maybe sometimes more than you think that this or that could happen to you or someone, right? So it's living with that awareness and then responding to that the best way, because you're living in, maybe a more painful part of the truth or a scary part of life, because, life and death are inextricably tied, and maybe that's scary. But going into that scary zone, going into that dark place, you find, this treasure of how do I maximize my decisions, and you get a better quality of life out of that. Now, you were also going to go into how it's helped you with entrepreneurship. So, yeah, why don't you go into that?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably been the biggest unlock for me because I mean, it's just being an entrepreneur and uncoupled that with the fact that I'm trying to build these businesses and my wife's trying to build her business while we're traveling too. So it's just even more of a unstable environment. Um, but the idea, like the Stoicism thing, has really allowed me to just be okay with failure, be okay with I fucked up and I did made this mistake and whatever, and I move on because I have now have clear defined goals of what I'm trying to achieve, and I go with those goals relentlessly. And what happened yesterday, what happened an hour ago, does not mean anything to me anymore because it's nothing I can change. It's outside of my control. So this kind of outside of my control thing, I get upset because so I told you I ship electric fireplaces. They're very large and they're very expensive, sometimes five, six, $7,000. Well, I ship it and FedEx breaks it. That's very frustrating for me. But I can't do anything about FedEx, and I can't make them. I can't go back in time and fix the fireplace. So I just have to deal with it in the moment that I'm in right now. So it also does an interesting thing once you start to do that over and over again
I
is
would assume
you
you're
really,
shipping with insurance, right?
yeah, I mean, all of it's covered. It's just still like a
Yeah,
nuisance
it's
to
just
deal
going
with.
through
Yeah.
that shitty process. No, I get it. Just clarifying.
Yeah, but it's you get into you keep doing this over and over again, and keep kind of like, oh well, that's out of my control. I can't deal with that. That's out of my control. I can't handle that. Da, da, da. And you really start to hone down the things that are truly important and the things that you truly have an impact and you have control over. So I spend most of my time focusing on those things. So just naturally, like my mind is more clear. And when you're an entrepreneur, you have a billion things on your plate at all times. I can work, I tell my wife sometimes, I could work every day, 24 hours a day, and I still would have work to do months later. Because that's just the nature of this kind of animal.
Sometimes work
Um,
creates more work,
Exactly. So,
and that's a good thing. You don't want to run out of work, right?
yeah, as long as you're making money, that's true. But I mean, the point of this, like you said, is financial freedom. Like the point of this is to not work. I'm working now so that I don't have to work when I've got kids. That's the point of this whole thing. So I'm trying to make passive income now so that I don't have to work as much when I've got kids.
Yeah, I mean that's the dream, right? I mean, who wouldn't want to just spend as much time as possible. I mean, some people don't, but yeah, I agree. I could completely relate to the idea of like, I would love to spend as much time as possible with my children.
Yeah, and it's weird.
I don't have
I
any
just
children yet, by the way, but I'm just saying in concept, yes.
Right, yeah. Well, that's what's weird is I don't really know. It's weird that this is like my motivator because I mean I know it's not that weird. So my parents got divorced when I was really
I was
young,
gonna
so
say I
that's
didn't
always
think it
been
was that weird. It made sense.
no, no,
off
yeah.
off the rip, it hit.
Well, I think it's weird. Like I think it's weird sometimes to like talk about these children that don't exist. I think it's kind of weird to like have these plans and goals and things that are around and centered around people that don't truly exist yet. Um, but
I get what you mean
I
by that.
yeah, but I just didn't have like a father figure around a lot, so I feel like that's what I'm trying to like overcompensate for, which is just a fun little thing to, I've recently realized.
Oh, dude, totally same. I mean, my dad is alive, but my parents, are divorced, and they are since I was like 3. And my dad was around sometimes, but he didn't live with us, that kind of thing, and he was not there a
Hmm.
lot. So yeah, I could relate. Don't feel alone on that. If you ever want to tweet me up, DM me, and be like, bro, I'm getting that fucking, I'm angry at the absence of a dad at an event or whatever the fuck it is feeling. I need someone to who knows how I'm feeling. Tweet me up. No problem there. Absolutely happy to connect on that.
Yeah, I mean, no, thank you. I appreciate the support. I have been trying to be a lot more vocal. I think that's something that, we as like a Web3 community, but just like people in general, I think need to start being more vocal and
And dudes
open about
especially,
their
bro, too. I mean,
fuck
society as
yes.
a whole
Fuck
doesn't
yes.
love when dudes talk about their feelings. I don't doesn't seem like, you know what I mean? Or doesn't encourage it, right? So I mean, I think that's something I like to do, is to encourage that, because I think it's healthy.
Exactly. That's what I just think it's healthy because I think there is someone, like I've got the confidence or the courage to come on here and talk about it. And there's going to be someone listening possibly in some time in the future that could hear this, and that gives them the kind of ability to start talking with their friends or their family, or at least people they're close with. Like, I'm just trying to encourage people to be more open with their emotions, because I think that's something that we can all benefit from. I'm a firm, like I've said this already probably because I say it all the time, but like, we are built for each other. We are here as humans to help other humans. And I feel like if we can communicate with our emotions and how we're truly feeling, like, we're just going to be better people, and therefore just make the community better as a whole.
I would totally agree. Let me ask you what I think is a fun question, given we're both stoically minded. What would you do if you had 1 week left to live, 1 year left to live, or 10 years left to live? Like, what would you do at those different types of junctures? Like, if you knew for a fact,
Hmm.
or would you do
Interesting.
anything different?
Um, so what is it? It's 1 year. What was it? What are the two? What are the time frames?
I think it was 1 day, 1 year, and then 10 years.
Oh, 1 day, 1 year. Okay. Um, I
If
mean,
that's
one
not what I
day.
said, that's what I meant to say.
Okay, well, that's what we're gonna go with. 1 day. I mean, fuck, that's tough. I think I would call everyone that was important to me and let them know that they were important to me and the impact they had on my life, and then I'd spend the rest of the day with my wife. Um, yeah, and then so is it 1 day, 1 year? 1 year, I would probably just do some fucking crazy shit. I would be running up debt on credit cards like crazy, and then I'd be figuring out how to scam the system
Wait,
to get
that
out of
doing what? That
that.
doing what though? You know what I mean? Like, are you
Yeah,
gonna buy what, a statue? You know what I mean? Just so you could look for, like, what? I would think experiential things, or what? Like, or just,
I mean, I
or
would
is
just
it physical
travel.
things?
Yeah, no, I would. I don't. I see. I don't generally don't get any sort of value from physical things. Like, that's one of the things, the main things probably that I gravitated to the NFT space so quickly, was I was like, oh, I can keep high valued assets in this digital world. Excellent. So yeah, as far as like buying stuff, probably none of that. It would just be like traveling, and yeah, it would just be traveling and going into different places and experiencing different cultures and people, and probably doing it in like, if I could, yeah, like, if that's, it would probably just be a lot of traveling and spending time with loved ones. Like, I would just, because I truly, I think that experiences and memories are what we take with us when we die,
Now,
not our watches or our cars. So I would want to make more memories.
now I agree with that 100%. Um, if you had to pick, right, or if there's none, there's none. I don't want to push you to give a false answer. Are there any, though, like, selfish things? Like, are there any, like, or even things you would actually do with family? They don't even have to be selfish, but are there any, like, specific things, like, okay, like, we would have to, you know what I mean? Like, you could run debt up on the credit card, right? But it's like, to what? Like, swim with the dolphins? Like, try to buy a rocket to the moon? You know what I mean? Like, what are the things, like, if you had that time?
Um, Shit. I'm probably going to come up with a better answer later and DM you about it. But for
That's fine.
now,
You can
uh,
comment it like, edit
I mean,
another
I
thread.
mean, I'm just going to give you my kind of like if I got stupid money overnight, what I would do. So like if I won like $1 billion, $1 million or something, millions honestly not that much if you really think
Yes,
about it,
but with the
but
context that there's the limit, you know what I mean? But yeah.
yeah, but if I like my dream in life is to just like rent like a private fucking jet, put everyone I love on it, and then go somewhere baller and have like a mansion just ready to go, and like the week or is like taken care of, and I just like shower my friends and family with love. I mean, that's all I've ever dreamed about doing is like calling my friends and be like, hey, get to this airport. I've got a jet waiting. Let's fucking go.
Now, let's say, right, you thought you had the year, everything changes, you did all that. Now you have 9 more years, but you're still dying. Not, but so somehow you haven't lost all trust in the process from
Yeah.
the inaccuracy of the first prediction. But now we know for sure that you have 9 more years. What do you do the next 9? You know, like do you even still want to have like children? Like, do you set up for a family? Does that like deter that? You know what I mean? Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So that was the one I was probably going to like struggle with the most because it's just difficult with
That's why
10
it's the
years.
last one,
But
baby.
yeah, yeah. So a couple things. Okay, so just like on the kid front, I mean, that would just be a conversation with my wife on what we think is best. I do think I would still want to have children, and with 10 years in front of me, I know I could do something. I could make stuff happen where they would be, not living on the streets after I'm gone. So that's the thing with the 10 years is I would at least have still a control over my ability to produce revenue generating assets for my family. So
And you
I
think you
still
could
think
come to terms with like, them not having you or whatever pain that would cause? Like, you think you could, or I guess set them up well enough, or they'd be okay, or like I know I'm asking you tough, crazy questions, right? But I feel like it's appropriate because, and again, for the listeners, if you're new to Stoicism, like this is part of what it's about. It's philosophizing. It's imagining different scenarios. It's self reflection. It's getting to know yourself. And some of the ways you actually get to like stretch and know yourself are hypothetical scenarios like this, where you put yourself places you didn't think you would be and maybe never really would be. But then the way you kind of discover yourself during thinking through these thought experiments does help you in real life scenarios. So that's, just to give context here to, what, why I'm asking these questions, that's what it is. But sorry, go on.
Kalski, I'm going to keep it 100 with you right now. I could answer these questions every single day for the rest of my life because I love this shit. So like I love having these hypothetical conversations. Um, but yeah, no, I mean 10 years like I would be trying to I would be trying to put something together. I would also, as far as like not being there for them, like I would be perfectly okay with that. But I would also be doing something, whether that's a video like diary that I do for them every single day or something. Like I would be doing something where they have some tangible version of me. So if that's a video or a journal or whatever, but I would be giving as much of that information and trying to take everything out of my brain and put it into a video format or a written format so that my children can have that through their lives as they grow up. So that's how I would kind of solve that issue. Solve. But then yeah, and then from that point it would just be just grinding like crazy until I can make sure that they're set up and they're good. And then once that happens, like I said, same sort of thing, just then spending time with my friends and family and wife until I die.
Love it. What I'm hearing is, big importance to you, somewhere to me, is family. And I think that's a big thread among people that I do end up connecting with and having a strong bond with, is that family is important. So I think that's cool. Just to, that kind of comes up, like, I'm still kind of just starting out in the podcast here, but you're not the only person that said like, families of strong importance and a motivating factor. And I try to get people on who are, passionate and positive and, community minded and good people. And, I think we're going to keep finding that, family, community, those personal bonds, friendship, however you have them, even if you don't have blood family, the idea is to be inclusive, not exclusive. So, it's family, but also community. So I think that's awesome. Now, another question I have for
Just a
you.
note
Oh,
on
sorry, go
that
ahead.
real quick. Yeah, just to kind of talk about that a little bit. So, and I think this goes back to the like growing up with a single mom, not really having a dad around, but like I was in Boy Scouts and then I have like a group of, it's six of us that we've all been friends since like fourth grade. So I like really, when I say family, like there's people, like you said, that are not my blood, but are my family because I think I was gravitating to these other families and other people to try and like, because I have a very small family on top of the fact that my parents were divorced. So there's not very many of people in my kind of core family. So I mean, like, yeah, like I have friends of mine that are like brothers to me, and I have their parents that are like kind of pseudo aunt and uncles to me, and like I've kind of like built this family around myself um, over the years. So yeah, it's interesting when you said that when you said the thing about like not blood family.
Yeah, right. And it's having right these living mentors. I think.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say?
Mm-hmm.
Because it sounds like you definitely have them, and I've found the same. Is that to get forward in life, you could jump leaps and bounds by having, not just a book. I mean, books are great. I think people should read more, but also that physical mentor in your life. What are either who are either some people that stand out as some of these kind of non-family or non-blood but have come to feel like blood mentors in your life, or maybe even if you don't want to go into who they are, that's whatever, but or what have you learned, or what are some of the most important lessons?
That's a great question. I'm trying to think if there's like one person that comes to mind. So my grandfather was someone who was very important to me. Um, so he's one person that definitely had an outsized impact on me. He was kind of after my parents got divorced, my mom and I moved up to Virginia and lived with my grandparents for 4 years. So he was, and then afterwards, after those 4 years, we moved back to Florida. And then shortly thereafter, my grandparents moved down to Florida after they retired. So my grandpa was always around and was very, very much my like father figure, kind of the guy I would go to when I had questions about things. And, um, he was actually the one, like I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't think it would happen as soon as it did. And he was kind of the one that sort of like kicked me in the ass to start doing that. But so he was B1 for sure. And what I learned from him was just patience and listening, which is two things I'm still not the best at, but I'm trying to do. In his model, he was always someone who would sit there and learn every little thing about people when he would meet them, and he'd ask them a billion questions, and then he would remember all the information they said, and he would see them a year later, and he would still ask them about their little kid and this and that. He was just amazing with that.
Did he have a trick to remembering? Did he write it down, or he just had that type of memory?
He was just like an encyclopedia of information. Like I feel like he just had some sort of like partially, photographic memory or something. He was like just pretty impressive in that regard. But no, if he had any secrets, he never told me. um, but and then as outside of him though, like everything else, where I do have people that were, especially like men, father figure types in my life that were always important to me. But I feel like I never really took the whole personality from them and modeled myself after that. I would just take like traits. Like I'd be like, you know what? My friend's dad, like he really does this really well. I like how he does that. I'm gonna take that from him. And then you know what? Maybe this other guy, I really like how he says these things and how he's, how, the type of father he is. I'm gonna take that. So like I found myself like collecting traits as I
And
would
if
go
I'm not
around.
mistaken, you also said earlier on this interview here that you have this same kind of approach towards like religions and philosophies, right? Is that, part of
Yep.
Stoicism or part of your view is you take the best out of everything and then you use those as like puzzle pieces to create one fuller image. And then you do the same thing in this regard as well. So that's kind of like a larger overarching perspective that you have that's a tool that works for you. Yes?
Well, Kowski, I've never put it that way, but yeah, that's yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that one. That's pretty good. But yeah, it's definitely that. It's definitely
Yeah,
some
I would. Yeah,
version of
I
that.
mean, I was just sorry. I didn't mean to like cut you off and stop you there, but I couldn't help but to notice. I'm like, wait, like this is. I'm like, did I hear this before? And I'm like, I did, but it was slightly different. I'm like, oh, this is like, an archetypal kind of overarching tree branching, connection kind of thing here.
And that's honestly like it's so interesting that that's what you say because one of the things that I think is my like true skill set, like the thing I'm really good at, is just finding patterns and then capitalizing on those patterns quickly and and better than most. So if I see that, oh, this is working in a business, this tactic is working, I can I catch on to that quicker than others, and then I apply it faster than others. I think that's really my like skill, is just finding patterns faster.
Yeah, I think that's an incredible skill to have. Um, I would sometimes the way I think about things, I'm a techie kind of person. I think about what would a computer have to do to emulate this task, and a computer that's trying to guess a password, right? Like, or trying to do something, encoded or cryptographic. Like, we're trying to come up with quantum computers, right? To just get further and further and further at the way that we can kind of, see and track and do patterns. So I think as a human, the better you are at pattern recognition, and I think the quicker you are able to recognize patterns, I think it says something to that. You have that kind of like, techie kind of machine learning kind of aspect about you, that robotic kind of thing. But it's a good thing, I think.
Yeah, that's funny. I
It's
have
like you could see the algorithm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, actually, that's right. Yeah. No, that's a great point. Thanks so much for like recognizing this, by the way, in me, because I never would have made this connection until you were like, you
You're
know
like
what you
fucking
do?
Neo, bro. We're all looking at fucking people. You're looking at ones and zeros. You just fucking fish it out. You have a
Yeah,
natural fucking radar for it, bro. You do it with the businesses, with fucking life philosophies. You just snip out like where are the points where like there's these little ingress points where it's like, oh, there's a node, there's a node, there's a node, and you're stringing these nodes together.
yeah, yeah. It's true.
I love it, dude. So yeah, so to get back to what you were saying, I know I get off on passionate little tangents sometimes,
It's
but
all good. It's all good.
you were saying, so what are some of the qualities? So you were saying you string together all these different qualities. You were saying I think patience is one of them, and you were going on from there. What are other qualities you think that or some of the other examples?
One of the things I think is that I like to focus is the common thing that I see amongst the adults that were in my life growing up that I um, gravitated towards or valued, they always treated everyone the same, whether that person was the trash man or the doctor. They were always kind to them. They were always there was no difference. And I worked at like a club, like a resort for when I was in high school. So you saw a lot of people like with entitlement and just like thinking they're better than everyone and that sort of vibe. Um, and you like I just thought it was the cruelest, like meanest thing to like be nice to one person and then immediately turn and just be a complete jerk to someone else because they seem like they're beneath you in some way. So that was one, is just
The
kind of
double
treating everyone.
standard, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I'd say that was one. And then I think because I was like missing a father figure in my life, I also noticed and recognized when my friends' dads or whatever were like being good fathers. So how a good father functions, I think would be things I kind of look towards. So, like there was some dads that I watched put work before their children all the time. And then there was others that didn't. And the kids that, whose dad was present and there and around had better relationships with their fathers. Because, I see, like I said, I had these friends and I see people when I was in a kind of a smallish town. So you're around the same people for like 10 years, 15 years. So you kind of get to see the whole gambit of when they were growing up to then now they're in, college or whatnot. And you see this, what worked and what didn't, what sort of parenting styles worked and which ones didn't. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that comes to mind. Hard work. I mean, I think hard work and just a good day's work, like putting in a good day's work. I had a boss at my first job, and I will never forget this. But he was the general manager of the whole place, and he has so during the day he's wearing a tie and a suit and everything, and I was working on the beach, just like putting out chairs and umbrellas and stuff. And at the end of the day, the rain was coming down, and I was trying to pull all the chairs and umbrellas in. He comes down, he takes his tie off, takes his jacket off, and comes out on the beach with me and starts pulling chairs in. And like that to me is such a simple thing. He was just trying to be a buddy, but like that's how you lead. Like that's a good leader.
By
Um,
example, right? By
yeah,
doing, lead by
exactly.
doing.
Yeah. So, and it's just the fact that he wouldn't like just sit there and, oh, I'm in my suit, I can't go outside and get wet. Like he was just willing to put in the work. Like just because he was the general manager getting paid six figures or whatever, and I'm just this lowly hourly employee, like he still felt the need to come and help me.
I don't
So
know
I
if
think
this
that's
is
probably
a
something.
real quote, but I feel like I heard this somewhere that a coach stands on the sidelines and a leader stands there next to you.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah, I mean
And if
that's what it
anyone's a
was.
coach, I don't mean like that. That's not to be a negative thing. No, I don't want anyone to feel attacked. I know like the world's sensitive somewhat these days. That's meant to be a positive thing, but you know what I mean. It's more leaderly to be standing next to someone where people at least feel more supported when you're there in the trenches with them instead of just kind of looking down or from somewhere else.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say like those sort of leadership things, I think were, and then also just what not to do. That was the other thing. Like I was very observant on what not to do. So it goes both ways, but I think there's certain, yeah. So yeah, it goes both ways with traits. I mean, you got to pick up good ones, but it's also about realizing the bad ones and making sure that you're not doing that.
I mean, so bad ones, right? Like I'm sure there's horrible things we all think of. Are there any like unexpected bad ones, like some sleeper kind of subtle like traits that you've learned to avoid that might not have been so obvious?
Hmm. Um, I mean, so being a traveler and a nomad that I am, minimalism is just kind of something I have to live with just because we can only pack so much. So I've really pared down my life to what is just essential to me. But even before we started doing this kind of traveling thing, I was shedding items. I was getting rid of things pretty frequently. And so whatever that consumerism idea, like the need or the feeling that if you want something right now, that you should buy it right now. Like I think that's a trait that I realized that was, damaging me. So like when I was back home and I was living in the US, it was a lot
That
easier just to,
impulsivity, right?
yeah, just to get on the phone and buy Amazon at a moment I thought of something, I could get on my phone and have it coming to my house and it would show up in a day or whatever. Like I realized how bad that is because when I was going through stuff to move out of the condo and start traveling, like I was just like, oh, I bought this and this and this and like, yeah, maybe I used it once, but like that was it. So I just think that like quick, I want it and I want it now and I need to get it right now, like that is really can be detrimental sometimes to people. And I think if you just let it sit for 48 hours and then maybe decide if you truly need to buy, a blow up alligator, like you probably don't need that. So yeah, I think that like again, it probably just goes back to patience too. Like, got to be more patient. Like, do I truly need this thing? Do I truly need to spend this money on this thing? Like, so that's been like a trait that I
So
noticed I
instant
was doing that I
gratification
got
is the
rid of.
silent killer, huh?
I think so. I mean, like nothing worth having comes easily. Nothing worth having comes quickly. Everything that's worthwhile, everything that's important in life takes a long time to form, takes a long time to kind of come to fruition. There's no overnight success story that doesn't exist. So like that, yeah, anything that's like quick. I'm always weary of quick things. I like
You're
slow.
saying if
I like
someone made a
patient.
quick like several $billion, you might be nervous that they were over leveraged and about to cause one of the largest financial collapses that we've ever seen.
Yes,
Theoretically,
that's a very topical example. But yes, yes, that's exactly right.
topical. Wait, why? Something? No, I'm kidding.
uh, no, that's exactly, yeah. Like that's a concern. So and it's funny too because you see it. I guess like getting rich quick has literally happened in the NFT space. Like, I mean, we probably personally know a couple dozen people that's happened to, but that's an outlier.
Right. But sometimes if you build your tower too quickly, you realize it's not a tower, it's a house of cards, and it's soon to come tumbling down.
Yeah, yeah. But so I think, yeah, again, that goes back to patience. But minimalism has been something I've really been leaning into a lot. I still to this day try and get rid of stuff, and I live out of a backpack. So
Yeah, and you find you're happy with less, right?
yeah, I mean, significantly happier. Like it's a noticeable difference, and it's and it's kind of counterintuitive because you think like, oh, the more stuff I have, the more things I have to like entertain me or bring me joy or bring me happiness. And what I've come to learn, at least for me personally, is it also is stuff that you have to like deal with. Like when I moved, every item I wanted to keep was stuff I had to package up and then put in a storage unit that I then pay for every month. So it's like a financial situation too, like detriment too. But yeah, I mean, it's just
I
stuff
guess if you're a
is
nomad, every
unnecessary.
item you own is a burden that could weigh you down or hold you back or slow you
I
down.
mean, yeah, now I'm living that. I'm living that reality. But I think even just having stuff in your house, even though you don't have to physically carry it around like a turtle or something, but just having massive amounts of stuff in your house is just a drain on your brain. Is just a a burden on your back, even though it's not physically on your back. At least for me, it is, and maybe that's just me.
I think you're right, man. I have some hoardy drawers. You know, it's not like the whole living space, not the whole house here. But yeah, there's definitely some hoardy areas where it's like, do we really need six of those keychains, or even two or three? You know what I mean? Like, or even the one. Sometimes. So, hopefully, something I could get inspired from coming out of here is to take your lesson from minimalism, as well as many of the other lessons you've mentioned. Now, I do like to keep this to about an hour. We are coming up to about 8 o'clock here, so we got like a couple minutes. We are kind of on the hour. I'm not gonna cut you off like mid word here, but would like to, just wrap up. I like to keep it kind of consistent if we can.
Yeah,
Although it
sure.
hasn't been so far. So if you're calling me out, yes, it hasn't been totally consistent, but I'm trying to form a format here. But anyway, anything you want to
Dude,
say, kind of like last words, mic drops, or like an idea that you felt like, oh wait, I didn't know we only had 2 minutes. Can I have 5 more minutes for this? Yes, you can have five. Whatever it is. But any other thoughts you have here?
so one, I mean, just on the minimalism thing, another benefit of it that I love. I mean, I've always had a drive and a passion for philanthropy. I mean, ultimately, I want to start a philanthropy that changes the world. That is my long-term goal. But minimalism gave me a way and a vehicle to start giving rampantly. So I had so much stuff to give away when I was moving that like I would give it to friends, and stuff that needed it, or donate it or give it away in that fashion. But like, and then giving became such a thing that was like so important to me. Um, and like what I was telling you earlier, like giving away my time. I feel like time is our most valuable asset. It is the only asset we can never get back until we figure out time travel, but we can never get it back. So I like to give my time, and then anything I have that I can't use, I like to give that away too. So that's one, like, just to kind of maybe help you adopt this minimalism trait. It's super like beneficial because it just feels good, um, to just give stuff away and to be helpful. And I realized
Love it.
that through minimalism.
I love closing out on that message. A band I like is Dave Matthews Band. I believe their lyric is, "When you give, you begin to live, you get the world." So 100% in aligned with what you said. Hopefully, I can give away some things too. I actually had a thinking of Thanksgiving. I was getting a bag together of some clothes that I put around my waist, and they screamed right off of my legs and said, well, what are you thinking? You're significantly rounder than these pants, than the waist of these pants. So those pants can go to someone thinner, someone who didn't have as much turkey maybe last year, or the rest of the year in between. So yeah, so if you're out there, just Thanksgiving, obviously a cool time to think about what you're thankful for, but also what you could give. So maybe, if you have some clothes that either are too big, too small, whatever, that's a cool thing you could think of to give out there. I just want to give a big thank you for Boggles for coming on. I see that we got Nath, Wild, Brumby in the audience. They will be coming on in about an hour. They're also going to be a guest, so cool to see them on here. If you want to check that out, tune in about an hour from now for the next episode that we're going to be doing here tonight. But yeah, Boggles, thank you so much for coming on. I wish I could come to your spaces more. I hope people come to your spaces. I'm often working my day job when you're doing those. So, my alien inks, hopefully that one day that's all I'm doing. But right now it's a balance. I come definitely when the days are that I am available, because I do love being in the spaces. So I think if you are available, you're in the audience, you're listening, you should definitely check those out as well. And one last thing here, if you haven't heard it today, a message from my friend Afakasi Brand: you are loved. And that's all we got here, so try to give away your stuff. Minimalism, remember, memento mori, you are going to die at some point. How do you make your life the best it could be? And give that a thought tonight. Peace out.